Thank you for watching, and I want to thank you for subscribing and giving us a thumbs up. It's so encouraging. Today, Renee and I want to talk to you about the college application process for homeschoolers. So I want to start off by saying, don't worry, friends. Colleges love homeschoolers. Renee and I have helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homeschoolers, successfully launch into college, and there's no reason to believe that homeschoolers are any less likely to get into colleges than students that go to traditional school. The thing that is true, though, is that it takes some effort. Renee and I, as I've said, the hundreds and hundreds of students that we've known and helped to get into college, we've known a number of families that because they wait a little too long, find themselves unable to get their oldest child, in particular, seems to be the thing, off to a four-year college because they didn't realize how many steps were involved. And so we're hoping that this video will help people to realize that helping your child get through the application process is a big project. And for homeschoolers, there's more pieces that have to happen that the parent has to help without having, because there's not that guidance counselor at the school. Homeschoolers get into all kinds of colleges. Homeschoolers do get into secular colleges. Homeschoolers get into faith-based colleges. They get into large colleges, small colleges, Ivy League colleges, hidden Ivy colleges, colleges in the north, south, Midwest, everywhere. There's not, your child has endless possibilities here. But again, these are going to take some work from you to help them figure out how to apply, because part of it has to come from you, the parent. So let's get started. So let's start with the beginning. The beginning is actually going to start much before you apply for college. So hopefully you're watching this video and it's not like you're trying to apply for college in 3 months. If you have the time, it's very important to start that SAT prep early. Renee and I really think that starting it in middle school is the best idea. But wherever you are in this process, take some time, get some books, go to some, or do an online class to give yourself the best possible chance with the SAT or the ACT. Both of these are touted or supposedly designed as intelligence tests, but they're teachable tests. They get better, people get better at them the more they take them. And so you want to give yourself that chance to that sort of upper leg by starting early and taking the prep, learning the tricks. So let's start with that. Taking it as many times as you can afford is a good idea. You may want to take it a couple times a year to help your scores get better, to help you know where you're at. Kind of a little piece here is homeschoolers used to not be able to take the PSAT. You are now allowed to. Sometimes you'll have to go to the school itself to take it, which sometimes people, your local school, some people don't want to do. But there sometimes is a small amount of scholarship money associated with that. It's up to you. But at any rate, let's say you've taken the SAT. Here's the next thing. Whether you were able to take it once or hopefully many times, you're going to get a score back that's going to help you, whether it's the ACT or the SAT, decide the next process of what college you're going to take. Just one other little note, if you have special needs or you have dyslexia or a variety of things, sometimes homeschoolers don't realize that you can apply for extra time for the SAT. If you look inside almost any SAT prep book, it will tell you where that is. You can find it on the internet, and you can apply if you need it for that extra time. And at least in theory, colleges don't know that you asked for that extra time. That can be very helpful. So you've figured it out, you've got your score, and you want to figure out what college you can go to. It's a common thing with homeschoolers that they either overshoot or undershoot their abilities. Unless you're going to a pretty large homeschooling group, sometimes it's hard to figure out where you fit and your abilities compared to other people. It's not a big deal. But when you've got that score, it's time to figure out what colleges are probably likely to take you. And this is easy to see. You can go on a website, it'll sort of have a pie chart, and you can figure out, are your scores well within those numbers? Are you likely to get into that particular college? I think almost everybody who starts out in school or homeschooling will think, okay, I'm going to go to the Ivy League. Yes, many homeschoolers go to Ivy League colleges, but certainly they don't all go. So you'll be able to figure out what's likely. So once you figured that out, you'll pick, a couple colleges that are, obviously within your reach that seem to you like, okay, this is where I fit. But the sort of common advice is then to pick a couple colleges that are sort of reach schools that maybe you just barely seem like you could get into, and a couple colleges that are sort of your safety net in case you don't get into the other colleges. Also, the safety net colleges where you're actually, your scores are sort of higher or maybe significantly higher than the average person, may be the ones that are the most likely to give you scholarship money. So by picking those colleges across the range, you're giving yourself the best options possible. A thing to keep in mind as a homeschooler is that many homeschoolers, when it gets closer, decide that they don't want to go as far away from home as they originally thought. So it's a very good idea to include in these schools that you've picked, and people tend to say 6, that you've included colleges that are close enough to home that if you decide that you feel more comfortable doing that, that's an option. Of course, many homeschoolers will actually live at home while they're going to college, and so of course that's a possibility too. Just a quick thing to think about is Renee and I see over and over again that homeschoolers sometimes will leave home with the idea that I want to go to this big college, I want to know tons of people, I want to be anonymous, like variety of sort of shades of that theme. But what we find over and over again is the homeschoolers that seem to have, a joyful experience where they meet a lot of like-minded people, they feel really connected, often tend to be people who chose to go to smaller colleges. Or if they're going to a state college, they're going there already with a group of people that they know from homeschooling. If you've grown up in a very faith-based environment, whether it was Jewish or Christian or whatever, we find that many times those students are going to find themselves having a more joyful experience by picking a faith-based college. Conversely, if you're a homeschooler who really didn't have a strong faith-based homeschool, but maybe you're friends with a lot of kids that do, or you decide to go up, that doesn't always work well either. You may actually be happier not going in that direction. But anyway, think about what is at the heart of what you're likely to connect with other students and try to follow that if it's affordable. The next thing is, sometimes people think, okay, the only thing I can afford is community college. That could be true, but as we'll be talking about later with the FAFSA, it might not be true. A lot of times families are sort of given the idea that you can afford this much money. So Renee and I have seen over and over again that students in certain economic groups will find themselves able to go to a variety of different schools for almost the same amount of money. So it's something to keep in mind. So you've taken the SAT, you've looked around, you've picked colleges at these different levels, easy, reach, all 3. So the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to visit these colleges if at all possible. When you're visiting, there's almost always set tours that you can go on. You may be offered an opportunity to spend the night and get to know students that way. There may be a visitation weekend. But what is going to happen that's different for a lot of homeschoolers is that they are going to want to interview you. Even schools that don't interview people often want to interview homeschoolers. And although sort of common wisdom among many schools is, well, the interview won't hurt you, but it could help you, we have reason to believe that homeschoolers may not be quite in the same category. It does seem, unfortunately, that homeschoolers in their interviews are sort of being tested out, like what are you like socially? What is the likelihood that you're going to come to our college and engage actively in the process of learning? So in your interview, it's going to be very important that you present yourself well as this well-rounded, engaging individual that I'm sure you are if you homeschool. So what's going to happen is you will go to the college, you'll be in a waiting room, and usually the admissions officer will come out and introduce themselves to you. Of course, you want to stand up, you want to look them in the eye. If we're over COVID, you want to shake their hand and follow them back. You'll want to make conversation with them in a way that's respectful and pleasant. You want to keep that eye contact. You want to make sure that you're speaking clearly, you're enunciating, and you're putting forth your best energy. When you leave, again, you're going to want to thank them. You know, they'll precede you out. They may talk to your parents a little bit. And you're going to want to get their card if they don't give it to you so that you can thank them for this interview and keep in touch later to ask them questions so that you can act, you know, interested. So what's that interview going to be like? It could be a variety of different things. And most colleges, if you dig a little bit through their admissions, will offer you some sort of tips on what they may be asking you. Homeschoolers in particular seem to get asked a lot of questions sort of revolving around their homeschooling. And so this is your chance to show the depth, the integrity, the originality, the breadth, the determination of your parents or homeschooling. This isn't the time to, you know, be funny or say like, yeah, I don't think they do anything, but they tried, right? You want to present your parents' homeschool experience as something that you loved. Well, hopefully you did love it anyway, but that you learned something from. So you're going to want to think ahead about, you know, what do you think the philosophy of your homeschool was? What were some good things about it? And how did it prepare you for college? Why are you certain that you're going to be able to succeed at this college based on the education that you had? The content of your classes, the way they were taught, the way that you experienced your homeschool is something that you're going to want to pick up. If your homeschooling was that you watched videos all day long on homeschooling, then you would want to hopefully have the ability to focus on these great field trips that you took. Whatever part of your homeschooling that you can show that has helped you become what you are, this is what you can do. Also, some people that homeschool really worry that, well, I didn't have extracurricular, I didn't have clubs like people in school. Of course, they know that you didn't have drama club, but they will be interested in to know, what did you do? What was unique to your homeschool? What do you have to bring to the table and share? And you're going to want to explain what you're going to do to be part of the college. So you can do that in a lot of different ways by ahead of time doing your research, looking at what's available in the college so that you can ask questions about that and you can express your interest, whether it's the orchestra or it's the, you know, one of the myriad of clubs that are going to be available. Renee, did you want to add anything about that?
Helen, this is really fantastic. This is great information, these tips on preparing your application, choosing those colleges, and now you get to the point where maybe you're going to go to one of these open houses. I really advise, if you're able to get to an open house, get to the open house. It's going to give you that feel for the college, as Helen said. What you have pictured in your mind and what your child has pictured in their mind, it can be totally different when you get there. Maybe you're going to get a feel for the students, a feel for the staff at this college. You're going to sit in on those classes. And if you're given an opportunity to interview, we can't emphasize this enough. You may feel that your student is brilliant, and you may think they're the greatest public speaker out of all the homeschoolers you've ever met. But they still need to practice. Research what types of questions are asked of any student interviewing. Research what types of questions may be asked to homeschoolers, and practice answers for those. This interview is your time to sell yourself, to convince them that you're going to be an asset to their community. So it's not your time to be shy and reserved. You want to be professional, you want to be engaging, and pick out those highlights of your homeschool experience that they're going to find interesting and unique. Colleges are always looking for those unique people that are going to add something new to the learning process, as Helen said, to the campus community, and do some research on that school. They want to see that you're interested in them. They are more likely to give you an offer if they think you're likely to attend. So give them honest reasons that you're interested in their school. Look up the majors that you're interested in. Find out about the programs and the professors. And talk excitedly about those programs. Ask questions about those specific programs. That shows that you really thought this through, that you're not just choosing this college because of its ranking or its close proximity to your home or for other reasons. They want to know that you really want to be there with them. And they're going to make marks on your little score sheet during that interview that this person's going to really be a great student here and is going to be one of us and is going to represent this college well. And when you go to those open houses, that's a great opportunity to meet people in all the different departments, the different levels. These are people that could put in a good word for you, and maybe later down the road you meet someone from the financial aid department, or especially at a small college. Going to these open houses, if you're talking to those people who are offering the different programs during the day, and the professors, if you're sitting in, they're going to get a feel for, oh, that was the homeschooler? Well, they were fantastic. They asked questions. They represented themselves well. One thing we often hear about our homeschoolers is they don't need their parents there asking all the questions. They're used to engaging with adults. They know how to speak to adults. They're not shy. They're not just looking in their phone during the whole program, and they're asking questions of these adults, and that makes an impression. And that's going to boost your chances of getting into that college.
Thanks, Renee. Colleges love homeschoolers, so don't get the feeling that it's people are out to get you or anything. It is important to remember that there's a variety of different colleges that are going to ask for different kinds of applications. Now remember that you're hopefully applying for colleges at different levels, but it's also important to think about what each college wants. So for example, at the very top tier of colleges, besides the SAT or the ACT, they'll want subject matter tests. So they're going to, you would need to plan ahead, sometimes even a couple years in advance, to hit the subjects that you want to take those subject matter tests for. And those particular colleges that are sort of harder to get into may have a very unique application that they want you to write an essay, or they want you to do some particular extra things for. If you're applying, for example, to an art college, they may want a portfolio from you. So it's important to ahead of time look at a college and see what extra things they are going to require out of you ahead of time. But for most colleges, just filling out the common application is going to be enough. So when you open the common application, it may be tempting to just kind of rush through it. But instead, because this is so important, you're going to want to give yourself time, as much time as possible, to work on it. Some people start working on what they're going to actually say on the common application a year ahead of time. Other people, just are waiting for it to open. This is going to take you more time as a homeschooler than it's going to take people who go to school, because of course you probably don't have a guidance counselor. There are people that you can hire to help you. You may have someone who's an experienced homeschooler that will help you, but you can always read a lot about what's required. So for example, you will have to generate some kind of transcript for your child. So you'll need it from 9th to 12th grade. And one thing that's confusing to some people is that most homeschoolers take some classes at college, some at home, some at the homeschool group. One easy way to do this that is very accessible to the college is to put these in different colors. So, make a key that makes it clear, like the blue ones we did at home, the red ones were in our homeschool group, the green ones were at college. If your child went to some kind of college, those college classes, that college transcript will need to be sent in also. But as part of the common application, you will have to download a version of the transcript that you've made. You want to make that transcript look as sharp as you can. And you'll want to try to make the classes easily understandable to the person who's trying to evaluate your transcript. So as much as possible, try to have the titles of your class match the titles that students would be taking in your state. If you go to a few states like New York, in order to graduate, you have a real specific list. But if you go to other states, you may have a wide variety of things that you can point out that you've taken. That's great, but make sure that also it shows easily looking at it that your student is prepared for the basics. So yes, that's going to be part that you have to do yourself, is make that transcript. And you may also want to make a portfolio. Sometimes it's possible to send into the school along with a common application or portfolio that actually goes through each class your child took. Sometimes you might even have a photo in there. But it could be that you're just on the common application going to be explaining and writing some of these things. Make sure all this is done, as sharply as possible, and that you've had someone review the work of you or your child, maybe even a couple people, so that when you send it in, it shows how excellent your homeschooling has been. Back to the common application itself. There's going to be parts of it that the child can fill out on their own, parts that a parent can fill out, or, again, you may have someone else that's filling it out for you. And there's a part for recommends. So it's very tempting to find the most sort of flashy, big name person that you can think of that would write something for your child. But because these are usually something that you don't get to see, like someone's going to send it into the common application for you, it's very much better to pick someone who knows your child well, can give specific examples of why your child is so fabulous, than to just pick someone that doesn't know your child well at all. If you homeschool and you're not somebody that's part of a homeschool group, it can be a little harder to figure out who that person could be. But you just need to search through your church life, search through any extracurricular life. It could be your neighbor. Just find someone who knows your child well, that will be able to present them well and is willing to actually follow through and do it. On the common application, there's a part that will clearly let you know when the application needs to be completed for each different school. And so that helps you kind of stay on track and figure out when you need to get each thing sent in. It varies widely. Remember also that part of this application process is that a number of schools will have a rolling application, so that actually is easier for your child to get in if they apply early versus late. Another thing to consider is something called early admission. So if you're trying to get your child into a top college, it's very common knowledge that the best thing to do, if you know which school you definitely want to go to, is to pick early admission. People often have like a 60-70% easier time to get into some colleges if they have chosen early decision, early admission. But the thing about it that's difficult is you can only do that once, and if you picked it and then your child just changes their mind, it's pretty hard to get out of that. So, be careful if your child's not sure, but if your child is reaching for Reach School, this is going to be their best chance to get in it, is to pick early decision, early admission. Those dates will be available to you other places, but usually you can find them on the common application. So the common application is going to have a lot of parts for you, right? You're going to have to as a homeschooler, you're going to have to make that transcript yourself. You're probably going to have to explain some of the classes yourself. You are going to have to act as your child's counselor unless you're going to hire someone else. And your child will have to help get these people who are willing to write them letters into the common application. The good news is, for many colleges, that's all you have to do is the common application. You're just going to pick different colleges that you want the common application to go to. Be careful to look at the websites, though, because there's a number of colleges that will then want some piece of it that's just for them. Could be a short essay, it could be a variety of different things, but just double check the college that college doesn't expect a little bit more from you than that. That portfolio, if you're deciding to write a portfolio where you're putting pictures, you're explaining your homeschool philosophy, your child is writing about each of their classes, your child may be writing additional information, you'll want to make sure that the colleges that you're sending that to will accept that, either in paper or in electronic form before you send it. But that can be very helpful for you to explain your homeschooling, particularly if you have a unique take on things or your child has had experiences that you want to highlight as part of sort of the package of their homeschooling experience. Renee, what would you like to add?
Thank you. So now you've gone through this process, and as Helen said, with that common application, you want to start that early. Same thing is true with looking into scholarships, and completing the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And you need to fill this out and renew it each year. And you don't want to do that at the last minute. You don't want to miss deadlines. The key part of the FAFSA is fill it out early. It opens in October, usually October 1st. So this is right around when you're sending in those college applications. You will need to add every college that you're applying to if you want to get financial aid to go to that college. And they allow up to 10. If you have more than 10 schools that you're applying to, you will have to fill out an addendum. There's another added process. But if you stick within the 10 schools, you'll complete your FAFSA. What you're going to need is your financial information, your W-2s, your tax returns, all of your child's financial information if they've had a job, savings, how much you have in savings. They're going to ask for all of that. And you may think to yourself, maybe we make too much, we're not going to get much financial aid, this is not worth filling out. Don't do that. Regardless of your income, fill out these financial aid forms. As Helen said at the beginning, you don't know what you can afford. And what the FAFSA does is it estimates what you can pay. And for many students, what that FAFSA, what the federal government determines and the school determines that your portion is to pay can be the same amount of money whether you go to a very expensive school or a less expensive school. So for example, if they determine your family should contribute $10,000, that could be whether you go to a $50,000 school or a $20,000 school. So you really want to fill out these forms and see what type of financial aid your child qualifies for. The colleges are going to require you to do the FAFSA. Nearly every college requires that before they're going to offer you a financial aid package. So you want to make sure that you've added that college. If you decide you're going to apply for an extra college, after you've done your first initial applications, make sure you go back to that FAFSA and add that college. You want to get these financial aid packages early while the colleges are still giving out scholarships and money. You don't have to necessarily depend only on student loans. If a college sees that your gap is between the student loan and their tuition, they can often find other little scholarships that they may give you based on merit, based on need. So you want to get those forms in. We can't emphasize that enough. You don't want, at the end of the process, not to be able to afford that college that your child is planning to go to because you missed deadlines and didn't complete the form. Allow yourself enough time. Start it several days ahead of time so you can collect all of your documents. And then once you do that, it comes back and you will get a report that will show you what FAFSA says your family should contribute. And you'll have a good framework for the amount of money you'll need to come up with to go to that college.
Thanks, Renee. So, here's the thing. Colleges love homeschoolers. Your child is going to get into college. We're just trying to help you to make sure that you've got all your ducks in the row so that it's not a situation where a child has to postpone college for a year or something because you didn't get it all set in time. The other thing is we're talking here almost exclusively about four-year colleges. For many homeschoolers, going to community college or Bible college for a year or two and then going to a four-year college works out well too. That's kind of an easier process. So that's the reason we didn't really talk about that as much. But at any rate, homeschooling has provided your child with wonderful experiences that are going to help them to be just the stars of their school. So don't worry for a second that this is impossible or hard to do. These are just one step at a time kind of things. And starting earlier just makes it a lot less stressful. So if you possibly can start it, ahead of time and take these things in little baby steps, it's going to go a lot better. I know it's hard, especially for a lot of children. It's very hard to make yourself sit down the summer before or even a year and a half before and make all these little baby steps towards the final thing. But if you possibly can, it's great. If on the other hand, you find yourself at the end, just do the best you can and get it out there and make it happen. It's going to be fine. You'll make it. It will work. Homeschooling works over and over again. People are, say that, and it's one of the joys of as a homeschool parent is to have your child come back later and talk about how they know that homeschooling really prepared them for life in these really particular ways. And I know that's gonna happen for you too. So thanks for homeschooling. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, we'd love it if you would subscribe or give us a thumbs up. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, friends. Bye-bye.